Perverted killer ravages blonde after, bend the bed rail and lock it around her neck. Then I put a bottle of carbonated drink in front of her, adding a certain amount of ammonium fluoride to it. He turned on the gas stove and left the house. No matter how much she twisted her body, she could not break free. As the temperature inside the house rose, the glass bottle exploded and the leaking gas caused an explosion. All of this was done by the killer to seek revenge on Sleepy, the cop known as the Crazy Bull. That day, a call girl was waiting for a client on the street when she was approached by a patrol car, and the one who waved at him was Sleepy, known as the Mad Cow Cop. When he saw the beautiful girl's sexy appearance, Sleepy could not resist. The Daizaburo in the driver's seat rushed out with more power. Sleepy was immediately pulled back into the car. Daizaburo thinks working hours should be used to focus on work, but Sleepy teases him about being a virgin. First day on the job in the 34th district, Daizaburo is unfamiliar with Sleepy's personality. That's when they got the call. There was a robbery at a supermarket in the city. Two masked robbers took a large amount of cash from the supermarket. The two of them rushed to the scene in a police car. The robbers had not yet escaped. Daizaburo is nervous, as this is his first real task. The robbers notice his anxiety and mock him. Sleepy warned them to drop their weapons. The robbers paid no attention and opened fire on them. The robbers have no cover around them, and the consequences are predictable. Sleepy took both men down with a few shots. One of the robbers was killed instantly. The other tried to threaten him with a hostage. Sleepy walks up to the second robber and quickly kills him with a single shot. Daizaburo hurried to comfort the terrified hostage. The hostage jumped into his arms, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't push her away. At that moment, he looked at Sleepy for help. Sleepy, however, made a gesture. With his colleagues coming, Daizaburo had no choice but to do as he was told. The hostage came to his senses instantly, remembering that Daizaburo had just ruined his good deed. Sleepy took him to a villa. Once the door was opened, many girls came in. Sleepy loudly introduced him to being a virgin. All of them looked towards the innocent Daizaburo, who cowered in the corner. The more he did, the more interested the girls became. Soon the girls surrounded him. In desperation, Daizaburo shouted that he wanted his partner to also be a virgin. Everyone instantly widened their eyes and walked out disdainfully. He got up and asked Sleepy why he was doing it. Not to mention that he was a cop. Sleepy also realized that he had done a bad thing with good intentions. Silent, he bowed his head. Seeing him like this, Daizaburo said nothing. He understood Sleepy's good intentions. The two of them resolved their conflict and began investigating a new case. They went to the shooting range in disguise. Recently, many women have been killed in the middle of the night. They found among their belongings a small gun sold in this range. And there they found a clue. All the people who came here to train were single women, and they saw the famous host Moore. His shooting was very standard and accurate. Then an instructor came up to Moore. He complimented her on how much she had improved her marksmanship. After Moore left, another coach came over. They seemed to be conspiring about something. Daizaburo reads through his lips that they're going after Moore tonight. But there was no substantial evidence. They had to follow Moore all the way. The strange thing is that Moore deliberately went to a remote area. She seems to be luring the criminals on purpose. Daizaburo reminded Sleepy that it was important to capture a live suspect this time, and Sleepy reluctantly agreed. At that moment, Moore was suddenly surrounded by three large men. Moore discovers that they are firing instructors at the firing range. It turns out that they are the killers of the recent late-night attack on women. Moore was instantly at a loss as she pulled out a small handgun, but the coach quickly snatched it from her. They pinned her to the ground in an instant. Just in the nick of time, Sleepy, who had been following Moore, came out. He shot the three men several times. The shots were fatal. Daizaburo, who was standing next to them, was instantly stunned. Didn't they agree to capture a live suspect? The TV crew also came out. Moore stood up and asked Sleepy why he hadn't caught the suspects and had to resort to violence. This is a special interview. There was a lot of staff around to protect her. Sleepy's actions were unnecessary, and she planned to report him to the police for excessive use of force. Daizaburo, next to her, thought Sleepy had gone too far. Sleepy was silent for a moment. He told Moore that the suspects knew her, and that showing their true selves meant they had no intention of leaving anyone alive. Even with staff protection, it would have been useless. Moore tried to argue. Sleepy had Daizaburo search the killer's body. They found a submachine gun inside, which meant the suspects had the ability to kill everyone on the scene. Upon learning the truth, Moore was terrified and collapsed to the ground. At that moment, Daizaburo felt that Sleepy was not so reckless and impulsive. But the next thing Sleepy did, he was puzzled again. They went on their daily patrol. Sleepy came to the apartment of the call girl. He came out of the apartment with a lot of cash on him. This made Daizaburo wonder, how can there be money in return for this kind of thing? Daizaburo was curious and followed Sleepy to the last apartment. The scene in front of him stunned him. To his surprise, Sleepy took half the cash from a prostitute's bag after sleeping with her. At this moment Daizaburo rushed in from outside the door. He scolded Sleepy for using his position to do this kind of thing. After all, it is not easy for them to make money. Then he told Lily that she had to go to the police station to file a complaint against him, and said he would testify for her. However, Lily decided not to pursue the matter and claimed that the money belonged to Sleepy in the first place. Daizaburo was determined to investigate thoroughly, so he followed Sleepy everywhere. He followed Sleepy all the way to the hospital. He went to a hospital. He gave the money he brought to the teller. Daizaburo kept a cold face in the car, but he was too embarrassed to ask Sleepy about it. Seeing Daizaburo's expression, Sleepy took him home. He intended to explain, but suddenly noticed that the soap looked unusual. He hurriedly stopped Daizaburo, who was washing his hands. Sleepy saw that the soap was filled with a corrosive solution. As soon as a person touches it, they will die instantly. Sleepy wasn't surprised, because in the 34th district, no gangster would dare come in as long as he was around. They came to the most intelligence-rich place to seek clues. The simple Daizaburo was still not used to this kind of place. Suddenly, Lily ran to them and warned them that assassin Blake was targeting Sleepy and that they had to be careful. After speaking, she hurried back. In the room, assassin Blake attacked Lily, bent the bed railing and locked it around her neck before placing a bottle of carbonated drink containing a certain amount of ammonium fluoride in front of her, turned on the gas stove in the room and left. With Lily unable to release herself from the restraints, the rising temperature caused the glass bottle to explode, igniting the leaked gas and causing a fatal explosion. At that time, Sleepy was informed of the news, slapped Daizaburo hard. I asked him why he didn't leave Lily behind. They hurried to Lily's house, but it was too late. As soon as they got downstairs, an explosion occurred. Lily was reduced to ashes, and they covered her with their clothes. So they raced to follow Blake's trail, but Blake had already set a trap on the road. They came to a gas station to fill up, asked the clerk if he had seen a man with a rose tattoo. The clerk said no. When the two entered the convenience store, the clerk quietly came to the police car to do the tampering. Later, he suddenly yelled that he had seen the man they were looking for. Sleepy immediately followed the clerk's instructions and chased the suspect. After they left, Blake came out of the back door. It turned out that they had already killed the real clerk and disguised themselves as clerks, waiting for Sleepy and the others to arrive. On the other hand, Daizaburo didn't get far when he suddenly realized something was wrong. As they were about to check, the car suddenly malfunctioned. It turned out that the man had tampered with the brakes. In the end, the car crashed into the fence and caught fire, but thankfully, both of them escaped. The gas attendant saw the car explode from a height and then left. Sleepy tried to return to the gas station to arrest Blake's accomplice. That's when Daizaburo intercepted him. He had a new idea. They claimed that the two of them had died in a traffic accident. Blake would definitely attend the funeral to confirm, and they hid under a tree, watching everything. Sure enough, they found the petrol station employee at the funeral and followed him to the subway station where they found assassin Blake in the carriage. Sleepy rushed over, but unexpectedly, Blake was stronger than him. Sleepy was thrown aside by Blake and hit his head directly on the handrail. While Sleepy was unconscious, Blake raised his fist to strike his face, but Sleepy dodged and kicked him in his lower body. He then launched a fierce counterattack, punching Blake repeatedly. Then he told Daizaburo to throw the gun to him. However, when he turned his head, Blake caught him and squeezed his body tightly. The subway came to a sudden stop. Blake pushed Sleepy towards the open door and he became trapped. Daizaburo quickly opened the emergency switch, and they struggled at the subway door for a long time. Daizaburo hesitated to fire his weapon for fear of accidentally hitting Sleepy. With Sleepy on the verge of being pushed out, Daizaburo shot and injured Blake's arm. Sleepy took this opportunity to smash his glasses with his head, and got up and pushed him out of the car. Both men are relieved to have taken care of Blake. At that moment, Blake's accomplice sneaks up behind Daizaburo and prepares to attack. Daizaburo turns around and shoots, probably because he was too nervous. The bullet missed. Sleepy ran in front of him and blocked the flying knife. Blake's accomplice was killed with several shots. Sleepy was taken to the hospital for treatment. That's when the hospital teller came to see Sleepy. He had used the money he received to treat the women who had been attacked. This is why Lily was willing to risk her life to protect him. When he went to visit Sleepy, he found him very lively doing indescribable things with the nurse. Sleepy and Daizaburo, known as the Mad Cow Police, were arresting a drug dealer. During the chase, the dealer's car collided with another car. Desperate drug dealers take hostages and confront Daizaburo. At this point, Daizaburo had to put down his gun. Suddenly, a beautiful woman rushed to the front of the fence. She was willing to trade with the child to become a hostage. She then lifted her jacket and said she had no weapons on her. The drug dealer looked at Perrin's sexy body and he agreed. Perrin stepped over the fence, slowly approaching the dealer. The dealer pulled her over and held her firmly in his grip. The scent of Perrin's body makes the drug dealer feel like he's in love. Just as the dealer is distracted, Perrin attacked instantly, then a set of consistent movements to subdue the drug dealer. This incident shows that you should never judge a person by their appearance, especially a beautiful woman. When Sleepy arrives, he immediately recognizes Perrin as a detective from District 31. They are old friends. Perrin was also transferred to the 34th Precinct. He became their new colleague. Daizaburo did not listen to what they were saying. He was already attracted by Perrin's beauty. The three of them returned to the station together. They were greeted by their new superior, Maya. Maya's reputation in the whole area is not very good. They weren't very happy with him. They then questioned the drug dealer they had just caught. No matter how much they questioned him, he remained silent. It was at this point that Maya entered, using the trafficker's child as leverage and threatening to reveal his true identity to the school if he did not confess. The drug dealer's face suddenly changed. He gave the time and place for their meeting. Although the information was successfully obtained, but the trio was not happy with Maya's approach. At 2 a.m., the four of them arrived at the location of the deal. Daizaburo and Sleepy were in charge of surveillance from high ground, while Maya and Perrin disguised themselves as a couple in a nearby vehicle. Maya took advantage of the situation to repeatedly harass Perrin, and finally, Perrin couldn't take it anymore, and ran out of the car. Daizaburo was about to come down and teach Maya a lesson. Suddenly several cars entered the warehouse. They rushed to signal to Perrin. They began to prepare for action, but just as Daizaburo was coming down from the water tower, the climbing ladder broke due to age and disrepair. He didn't hold fast and fell. Fortunately, Sleepy caught Daizaburo on time, but the noise they made attracted drug dealers. Drug dealers shot both of them. Sleepy rushed to pull Daizaburo up to the water tower. The bulletproof vest helped him take most of the bullets, but his ass was in trouble. While the two were at a standstill, Perrin tried to help them, but Maya threatened her with a gun. Cover for Maya to take the drug dealer's goods and money. She had no choice but to go into the warehouse with Maya. But right after Maya took the stuff, Maya suddenly fired from behind the dealers. To draw their fire to Perrin's side, he took the opportunity to drive away. Just when everyone was at a loss, Sleepy suddenly gets up, reveals his secret weapon. His pants were full of grenades. Daizaburo grabbed the grenade and threw it at the drug dealer. In no time, the enemy was wiped out. But it was Sleepy who suffered. Sleepy had to endure a lot of pain. What makes Sleepy even more angry is that all credit was given to Maya. No one knows how much Sleepy paid for this mission. Daizaburo and Sleepy were on patrol as usual. Daizaburo, resting in the car, accidentally saw Maya driving by. Curious, he followed him. He followed Maya to an abandoned factory. He saw that he was meeting a drug dealer. They seemed to be plotting something. Suddenly a gun was put to his head, and so Daizaburo fell into the hands of the dealers. Maya then found Perrin, lying that he had found the drug dealer's base. When they arrived at the villa, they found the villa empty. As they searched each room, the door suddenly closed behind them on the second floor. A man came out of a hidden door. Perrin was surprised to find the man was Enrico, a major drug dealer in District 31. She had once seriously injured him on a mission, but found that he had been fitted with mechanical prosthetics. Just then Maya suddenly pointed her gun at Perrin. Looks like he was bought by Enrico. Enrico demanded to torture her, and a few of his henchmen were ready to join in. He then brought out Daizaburo, who had been captured earlier, and decided to humiliate Perrin in front of him. Seeing his crush being violated, Daizaburo bit off the rope in the heat of the moment, grabbed a fire extinguisher and sprayed the crowd, and provoked them. Drug dealers were angry with him. They all turned their anger on Daizaburo. Daizaburo tried to distract drug dealers. No matter how much the dealers hit him, he kept provoking them. To better provoke them, Daizaburo saw the right moment to attack them in the lower body. Daizaburo knew that if Sleepy noticed that the police car was missing, he would come to their rescue. All he could do was buy as much time as possible. Perrin understood that Daizaburo was doing everything for her. He had a chance to escape, but chose to stay. Perrin was moved to tears by the thought of it. Sleepy, after the exercise, found that the police car was not there. He realized that something might be wrong with Daizaburo. He followed the trail to a warehouse, where he was stopped by a hitman named Nickel. Sleepy asked Daizaburo's whereabouts, and Nickel threw him 20 cans. There were 10 cans of explosives inside. Nickel said he would tell Sleepy about Daizaburo if he dared open one of the cans. The situation was urgent. Sleepy didn't hesitate. Picked up one and opened the pull ring. There was a loud explosion. After the smoke cleared, Sleepy was able to resist explosives with his strong muscles. Nickel told him the location of Daizaburo. By this time, Daizaburo was unconscious inside the house. As the hitman prepared to kill Daizaburo, Sleepy blew up their room with a few bombs and then rushed in, shooting and killing several enemies. He rushed to save Daizaburo. At that moment, a strong man came out of nowhere and jumped Sleepy, and they fought. However, the man pressed hard on his wound, immobilizing Sleepy. Enrico took the opportunity to help the muscular man. Meanwhile, Daizaburo regained consciousness and rolled a can bomb under the wheelchair, took a submachine gun, and fired, detonating the bomb. Sleepy then fought back and killed the muscular man and Enrico, and Maya slipped away. Daizaburo was taken to the hospital for treatment, but his injuries were too severe. The doctor tells the two not to get their hopes up. It's up to his own will to get through this. That's when Sleepy calls Perrin outside. He wants her to marry Daizaburo, to help him through this difficult time, because Daizaburo has always loved Perrin in his heart. Perrin wore a wedding dress, and they held a wedding ceremony for Daizaburo in the intensive care unit. Perrin put the ring on his finger and gave him a kiss. Suddenly, the doctor shouted that Daizaburo's condition had improved, and he seemed to have overcome the critical condition. Next, Sleepy and Perrin were going to capture Maya. They get word that Maya was going to escape by helicopter, so they arrive at the airport early. After he boarded the plane, Sleepy showed his true face. Maya jumps out of the helicopter and escapes. That's when Perrin, in his wedding dress, jumped down and landed a beautiful roundhouse kick that knocked him to the ground, successfully arrested him. Soon after they came to visit Daizaburo in the hospital, he gave Perrin the ring, because he hoped that one day he would marry Perrin in style. But until then, the ring goes to Perrin for safekeeping. Anime named Mad Bull 34, only 4 episodes, released in 1996. A very old anime, but its plot is worth reviewing. At night in a dark alley, a sexy, long-haired beauty found a police officer who was begging for help, saying that her friend was being molested. They quickly arrived at the scene of the crime and found a short-haired woman lying on the ground in a state of disarray. The police officer went to help her, but the short-haired beauty stabbed him with a knife. Meanwhile, the long-haired beauty attacked another police officer. 2 hours prior, the leader of a killer group sent out 4 beautiful female assassins to kill a reporter. Recently, there have been several rape and murder cases in District 34. The modus operandi remains unchanged. The same brand of cigarette butts were left near the murdered girls. Edward, the local gang leader, is considered a prime suspect. However, due to a lack of evidence, he was released on bail. This incident has sparked public outcry. Suddenly, a beautiful reporter appeared. She questioned Edward in the street, asking him if he dared to swear to God to prove his innocence. Edward's men violently pushed her away. The beautiful reporter immediately asked the crowd to take pictures as evidence. The beautiful detective Perrin, who was watching the live broadcast, was in deep thought. The reporter was her college friend Jocko. Edward, whom she interviewed, was a gangster boss who had killed many people. Perrin is worried about her safety and finds her. They went to Jocko's apartment. To their surprise, Sleepy and Daizaburo were also present. Sleepy saw Jocko on TV and was drawn to her beauty. So, he took it upon himself to come and protect her. Their concerns were valid. As soon as Jocko returned home, she discovered her pet in the oven, dead. She fainted at the sight. A few moments later the phone rings. Jocko immediately rises and answers the phone. The mystery man told her it was just a warning. If she continues to report on Edward, he will kill her. Jocko was scared and flees. Daizaburo and the others followed after her. Her mind was now blank. She ran towards the car without listening to the advice. However, someone tampered with Jocko's car, and Jocko almost got killed if not for Daizaburo's intervention. Instead of being scared, Jocko worked harder after the incident. She went to the police chief's office and interviewed the chief. She also asked about Edward's investigation. Upon seeing the coverage, Edward decided to eliminate Jocko, Sleepy, Daizaburo, and the rest. So he found a local group of killers. This organization is full of desperate people. To complete the mission, no matter the cost. The first person to be attacked was Sleepy. He had just stepped out of his apartment after a workout. A motorcycle rushed towards him. Sleepy saw the right moment to knock the killer off the bike. Then he chased him into an alley. However, the killer was already waiting for him with a gun in his hand. Suddenly, someone jumped from a high place and attacked Sleepy. Fortunately, Sleepy reacted quickly and grabbed the attacker, but the attacker held onto Sleepy and had his companion shoot at them. The man did not hesitate and shot at them several times. Fortunately, the killer blocked most of the bullets. Sleepy only sustained a few superficial wounds. He rushed over and tackled the shooter. Seeing that the plan had failed, the killer turned the gun on himself. At the hospital, he warned Daizaburo that they should be cautious of this group of killers. While escorting Jocko for a recording, they were attacked again. The killers were driving a motorcycle and used a chainsaw to cut the tires of the interview truck. Fortunately, the TV crew only suffered minor injuries. Daizaburo drove after the killer. Surprisingly, the other side turned around and rushed towards him. Daizaburo directly shattered the windshield. At that moment, the killer arrived at his car with a chainsaw. The chainsaw directly cut the roof of the car. The police car collided with the side of the road and came to a stop. Daizaburo fired several shots and killed 2 men. However, the boss of the hitman group learned that the mission had failed. He decided to send his 4 best female assassins to continue their assassination. These 4 are all orphaned. They have been adopted by the boss of the group since they were children. They appear attractive on the surface, but never miss a chance to carry out orders. 2 police officers are on patrol in their car late at night. A sexy woman suddenly stopped the police car and was the killer group Ailing. She informed the police that her friend had been taken by hooligans, so they followed her to an alley. At that moment, Ailing's expression suddenly became cold. Not far away, the police officer found a woman lying on the ground. He was about to pick up the fainted woman when, suddenly, the woman on the ground opened her eyes and stabbed him in the body. The other officer was unaware of what was happening. That's when Ailing killed him in the back. They transported the injured officer to the police car and threatened the officer to call Sleepy for help. The police officer who was held hostage had to use a walkie-talkie to trick Sleepy and Daizaburo to come over. It turns out that their goal was to eliminate Sleepy and Daizaburo. Daizaburo and Sleepy arrived by car shortly after. At that moment, Sleepy noticed blood coming out of the car door crack. He also cautiously fired several shots at the trunk. Suddenly, the trunk door opened. Jinyu stood up and tried to shoot, but she tumbled to the ground due to her wound. The car suddenly started moving. In a chaotic situation, he shot and wounded lying inside the car. However, at that moment, Tsuehua suddenly rushed out of the alley. Daizaburo noticed and warned Sleepy. He fired several shots at Tsuehua. When Sleepy reacted, he shot her and killed her. At that moment, lying inside the car came to her senses. She pulled out a grenade and prepared to die with them. But Sleepy reacted quickly and jumped onto Daizaburo. They came to Lying, who was dying. She whispered softly that Big Sister would avenge them. After that, she passed away. At that moment, Sleepy suddenly realized that Jocko and Perrin were in danger. By that time, Ailing had already arrived at the hospital. She entered Jocko's room disguised as a nurse. As a police officer, Perrin noticed something was amiss with the nurse in front of her. Suddenly, Ailing crouched down and attacked Perrin with her backhand. Her nails can cut through anything. Ailing picks up the scalpel on the cart and shoots it at Jocko. Then she rushes forward with the scalpel. At that moment Sleepy arrives and shoots Ailing down. Jocko couldn't believe what was happening. Suddenly, Ailing stood up violently. Shoot the scalpel at Perrin. Sleepy rushes to shoot. In the nick of time, Daizaburo helped her block the knife. Ailing realized that the mission had failed and took her own life in front of everyone. The group's assassination attempts were unsuccessful after another. Edward loses faith in them. However, for their reputation's sake, the group won't stop there. Regardless, they must eliminate Sleepy and others. Under duress, the TV station allowed Jocko to take a break for a while. But as soon as she left the house, she was captured by the mystery man. Jocko is taken to Edward's villa. Edward tells Jocko that his fetish is to rape and then kill, which makes him feel more excited. He wants to personally torture the woman who has been bad for him and says he will torture her to death. That's when a car breaks in. It was the Sleepyhead trio arriving. Sleepy saves Jocko. Edward sees that the situation has been made public and no longer conceals it. Edward ordered his men to finish off the man. Both sides started firing at each other. They were overwhelmed by intense firepower and could not fight back. Daizaburo saw the situation and drove his police car out of the mansion, but before they could escape, two young men with bombs came rushing toward them. They were the dead soldiers who were sent by the assassins. The three men jumped out of the car in a hurry. The smoke cleared and Edward's men followed them out, but Sleepy took care of them with just a few shots. They thought everything was over, but suddenly they heard a loud noise. A tank approached the three of them. I didn't expect the leader of the killer group to come after them in a tank. At that moment, people from the precinct came to their aid. But with the mortar fire suppressing them, they couldn't get close at all. The four of them were helpless in the face of the tank. Rockets flew overhead. At that moment, Sleepy suddenly had an idea. Daizaburo draws the attention of the killer leader. Sleepy sneaks to the side. He lifted the tank with all his might. Sleepy growled and was about to overturn the tank. Surprisingly, the leader of the killer organization aimed his rocket launcher at the tank with the intention of dying together and pulling the trigger. The tank exploded instantly. Daizaburo's three men were frozen in place. They thought Sleepy had sacrificed himself. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the firelight. It was Sleepy, who was covered in dirt. Jocko's colleagues recorded the incident with a video camera and broadcast it live throughout the country. Edward was finally held accountable by the law. As usual, Sleepy was doing his workout while Daizaburo was bored waiting for him downstairs. Suddenly, a monster in armor appeared behind him. He was the Green Devil who recently attacked the police. He was covered in special metal armor that surrounded his entire body, and he even had special weapons mounted on his arms that could cut through anything. Sleepy heard the noise and rushed down to support him, but the bullets couldn't hurt him. He seemed to know Sleepy. After provoking Sleepy, he suddenly put down his weapon and left. Nearby patrol officers heard the noise and came to support it, but the Green Devil suddenly fired a laser beam over his shoulder and destroyed the police car. He turned around and gave them the middle finger and turned away. Sleepy and Daizaburo had never seen such advanced weapons and equipment, and he had no clue about the identity of the Green Devil. This incident alerted the top management of the police department. Special police officers were dispatched by headquarters to deal with the Green Devil. Upon arrival, the group immediately subjected Sleepy to cold ridicule. Once a famous cop in the 34th district, the crazy bull police officer is now being toyed with by the Green Devil. Suddenly, the alarm in the house sounded. The Green Devil was found in a warehouse. All the policemen on patrol nearby had been killed by him. Special police arrived at the warehouse and began attacking the Green Devil with heavy weapons. Their bullets were able to penetrate the armor of the Green Devil. Seeing the Green Devil fall to the ground, the captain of the special police arranged for his team to arrest him. But as soon as the team members reached the roof, the Green Devil suddenly stood up and launched an attack. Seeing this, Sleepy climbed onto the roof and asked him who he really was. To his surprise, the Green Devil confessed that he was Kevin, Sleepy's former partner. Kevin died of cancer 3 years ago. Sleepy did not allow the Green Devil to dishonor his friend. He wanted to see who was really under the mask. So he grabbed the axe and slashed at him. Bullets couldn't hurt him, let alone an axe. Sleepy got up again and jumped on the Green Devil, trying to take off his mask. While the two were locked in a standoff, the special police had already aimed their weapons at them. The Green Devil kicked Sleepy away, and the weapon on his shoulder destroyed the special police helicopter. He quickly fled the scene. The group returned to the police station to discuss how to deal with the Green Devil. He mentioned Kevin, who was Sleepy's classmate in the police academy. Kevin was diagnosed with advanced cancer years ago. He had to accept money from the mob to treat his illness. Sleepy turned Kevin in to keep him from going astray. As a result, he was dismissed from the police force. Since then, Kevin has disappeared, and there is no record of his death in any hospital. Special police decide to use Sleepy as bait and set a trap to capture Kevin. Sleepy didn't hesitate to agree. He couldn't let his friend go down the path of no return. Sleepy then published a challenge to Green Devil in the major media. The venue was set in an empty stadium. Wearing armor, Sleepy arrived at the stadium, where special police officers lay in ambush around him. To their surprise, the Green Devil arrived in a tanker truck, and the special police couldn't open fire. Soon, they engaged in a fierce fight. Despite armor protection, but Sleepy did not have the upper hand. This heavy armor affected his attack speed. Sleepy was soon pinned to the ground by the Green Devil, and he took the opportunity to take off the Green Devil's helmet. Under the mask was a woman. Seeing the real face was revealed, she hurriedly jumped to the car. She drove away with the sound of explosion. Fortunately, Sleepy was not seriously injured. The SWAT team continued to chase the tanker, set up barriers along the road. Special police then ordered the use of fire, causing the tanker truck to explode and fall into the river. The woman managed to escape after hiding underwater. After investigating, they found out that the woman was Kevin's younger sister. But why would she attack the police? Sleepy, who usually worked out 3 times a day, was drinking alone at a bar today. Even when beautiful women threw themselves at him, he could not muster any interest. A fierce look in his eyes frightened the women away. He still refused to believe his best friend's sister Cindy was the notorious killer, the Green Devil. The waitress next to him handed him a handkerchief. He looked up to see that it was Cindy. What she said next shocked Sleepy even more. It turns out that her brother Kevin didn't embezzle the underworld's goods and money for his own medical treatment, but to allow her to complete her studies. In Kevin's mind, he didn't blame Sleepy for exposing him. That is why Cindy never tried to kill Sleepy. When the news of Kevin's theft of the goods was exposed, he was chased by the underworld. However, when Cindy sought help from Kevin's former colleagues to rescue him, they were too scared of the underworld's power to help. Kevin was buried alive and died. Although the killer who took Kevin's life was from the underworld, those police officers who were afraid to rescue him were also to blame. She wanted revenge for those who had hurt her brother. Sleepy would never let Cindy fall like that. Suddenly, she took Sleepy's hand. After Kevin's death, she felt extremely empty and lonely. She hugged Sleepy and felt the warmth of her brother in his embrace. Memories flooded her mind. Sleepy felt guilty about Kevin, so he took her home on his back. He was the only one Cindy could count on. Sleepy started exercising again. After this heartwarming scene, Sleepy thought Cindy would stop, but he underestimated Cindy's obsession with revenge. Cindy knocks Sleepy out when he's not expecting her. Then she tied him to the bed with an iron chain. Then she told Sleepy the truth. It turns out that after her brother was killed, Cindy was taken by the underworld. The Green Devil armor was a product of their experiment on her. She wanted to put an end to it. Cindy, wearing the Green Demon armor, arrives at the Mafia boss's gathering. What they didn't expect was, Cindy was out of control. She went on a killing spree at the meeting. In a matter of moments, the gang leaders were all wiped out. Daizaburo, who was on patrol, received a message from Perrin that the Green Devil was fighting with the army. He desperately tries to find Sleepy's whereabouts, because he is the only one who can stop him. It's not long before he finds Sleepy tied to a bed. After releasing the chains, the two of them rush to the scene. Cindy is now fighting the army. Sleepy tried to convince her to stop killing. Cindy is out of control. He fired on Sleepy's side, hoping he would back off. She then ran into a church, Sleepy following closely behind. He knew Cindy admired him. To get her to stop killing people, he proposed to Cindy. Cindy took off her helmet. With tears in her eyes, she agreed to his request. At that moment, they happened to be in a church, so they promised to go to heaven to see Kevin after their wedding. That's when Daizaburo and Perrin arrived. Sleepy made a simple wedding dress. They both witnessed a simple wedding ceremony. After the ceremony, they walked together to the roof. Sleepy told Daizaburo not to come. It's time to put an end to this. He pulled out 2 small pistols and they made a pact to fire together. After the shooting, Cindy fell into Sleepy's arms. In the end, Cindy didn't shoot. She was grateful that Sleepy was there. That's the end of the story. This anime focuses on crime and portrays the duties and selflessness of police officers. It blends manga and real-life elements to create a unique visual effect, and it is considered one of the classic crime action manga. Note: this anime was produced as a 4-episode OVA based on the manga. If you haven't seen enough, please check out my previous videos. If you also like, help give a compliment. See you in the next video.